Atlantis. Was Atlantis a real place? No, it wasn't. There was no such place as Atlantis, not in the geographic sense. It never existed. I know we've had centuries of people looking for such a place, and there are myths of sunken islands off the coast of Ireland, most famous being the High Brazil Island. And there probably was a civilization of some kind that existed in the North Sea before that sunk, between Scotland and Norway. And there's various other stories of civilizations in the Atlantic, but if you look at the seabed through the sea maps, there's no suggestion of any kind of island that existed there that could have been like Plato's Atlantis. And also with plate tectonics, it wouldn't fit. You know, if the plate tectonics is true, then there's no place for Atlantis to fit in the mid-Atlantic. So we have to come to the conclusion that Plato meant something else when he told the story of the myth of Atlantis. We're all familiar with Plato's allegory of the cave, the idea that the population is controlled by watching shadow puppets on a wall, which they think is reality because they're facing the wall all the time, but they never question to think where the light source is coming from, and the light source being the exterior entrance to the cave, where one of the people turns around and eventually leaves, tries to come back and tell the others that this is not your real life. The shadow puppets on the wall are not your reality. Your reality is the light coming through the cave at the back behind you. And Atlantis is the same way. If you look at how Plato described the layout of the islands, it's best thought of as a 2D representation of a three-dimensional power structure, organizational pyramid, or a conical would be more appropriate in this case. The center of the island would be the equivalent of the top of the pyramid, and then you would have all the administrative, military, bureaucratic structures leading towards the masses at the bottom of the pyramid. These would be the laborers and the working classes, as well as like the upper echelon of the mercantile classes, traders and so on. So that'd be sort of like the lower business class. And that's exactly what Plato meant by the Atlantis story. It was like a coded message of sorts, a coded message to the elite, not just of ancient Greece, but, following on from that through all societies, that if you do not maintain the hierarchical pyramidic structure with the elites at the top, the whole thing will be destroyed. You will not be able to maintain the society unless the elites at the top are mandating all cultural, social and religious doctrines from the top down, and between them and the masses are the administrative, bureaucratic and military classes, which not only keep the structures going but also protect the elite at the top with their temples of Poseidon and their palaces from the lower class at the bottom, who never actually get to see how the other half lives. A good giveaway that we're dealing with metaphor is not only the structure of the island in terms of these concentric rings, which are different strata of classes and divisions of power, but also Plato's subterranean tunnel which leads from the center island out to the ocean. Now this is a real giveaway. Why would you have a subterranean tunnel when a canal would do? And the reason for that is this is a metaphor for a controlling sort of a secret service, an intelligence service which knows the score. These are the ones in the know. They know exactly what's going on. They know how the people in the bottom, the peasants, are existing. They know how the mercantile classes are. They know how the military is, and they feed it all back to the power structure at the top, and vice versa. And this is what Freemasonic and brotherhoods and similar kinds of fraternities were really all about in the past. They were the intelligence services of their day. They gathered information, they collected dossiers, and they disseminated information and disinformation from the top down. And that's a real big giveaway that we're dealing with metaphor. Another giveaway is the idea that outside, at the beginning of the tunnel, we have these two pillars. Now Plato referred to the land of Atlantis being beyond the pillars of Hercules, which has been speculated as Gibraltar. But if you look at Gibraltar, it doesn't have two mountains, it just has one mountain. So it's not, there's no pillars there, it's a pillar. So it's not the Azores, and it's not the Canary Islands, it's not Ireland, and it's not, North America, as Ignatius Donnelly speculated. What the Pillars of Hercules represent are the same things that they represent in Freemasonic thought, that they're the entrance to the secret. This is why there was two pillars and two columns at the entrance to the subterranean tunnel of Atlantis. This is why there's two columns at the entrance to Solomon's Temple in Jerusalem, Jachim and Boaz, or Boaz and Jachim. The two columns would represent you passing from the world you think that exists into the real world, which is hidden behind closed doors and controlled by very shadowy and powerful people. In a Freemasonic ritual, what they do is there's two columns, and at the top of each column are globes. One represents the earth and one represents the cosmos, or the magical world. And when the rites are taking place, or the initiations are taking place, they lower the earthly column to signify that we're now in the world of magic. I'll do a video later on what magic actually is. It's not what you think it is. And when the rite is over, they return the column, the earth column, back up into position to show that they have returned to earth. So this is an idea that's been with us since at least classical Greece, probably since Babylonia. So Atlantis is not a place. It's no point in going looking for it. It's just not there. It's an idea. It's an idea that was created by Plato in a coded metaphor to warn his contemporaries in the power structure and later ones what would befall you if you didn't maintain the integrity of these hierarchical systems. So it's a form of predictive programming in the form of mythology, and it's done in terms of how it should be structured according to the elites of classical Greece. So he didn't give them a pyramid, he gave them concentric islands, a 2D version of a 3D power structure. Therefore, the catastrophe which befell Atlantis, it has to imply that no other system of social engineering could exist outside the hierarchical model devised by Plato himself. And it must be understood that Plato's ideas of government are essentially a form of totalitarianism. His idea of justice, it did not hinge on personal liberties, more along the lines of, any means have to be taken to achieve a just society, and therefore this is determined by the ends always justifying the means. And this is why he would write in the Republic's stories of how to control the population of the Grecian islands by starving them or starting wars. This was just business. This is what Plato was about. This is what he learned from Socrates. So the Atlantis dialogue is more like a preemptive warning to the social elite, not just in Greece, but to this very day. If you do not maintain it, the poor will erupt. The eruption that destroyed Atlantis, again, is a metaphor. And it will be the end of your perfected society. So Atlantis is not a place in geographic sense. It never was. The only place it exists is in the minds of men. And it's a very powerful mythology that has existed for a very long time and has stayed in our consciousness for so long, precisely because Plato knew exactly what he was doing. He knew how to target the subconscious mind. He was brilliant and he was devious, but there never was an Atlantis. Not a place you could go visit.